What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is going to be something new, and I have to give you guys a bit of perspective. Reason why I decided to combine these two films together in one video is because, truthfully, I knew for a fact that I wanted to review Lost in Translation because it turns 20 this year. So I actually watched it yesterday. And then the thing is this, I also knew that this year I wanted to review the film Her because it turns 10 this year. And so I decided to rewatch it today, less than 24 hours from this. And the other thing is this, these two films, they're not just both special because they both have anniversaries this year. No, they're both special because, in my opinion, they are both films dealing with the same relationship. This is my video for Lost in Translation and Her, two perspectives of a relationship. So, here's the thing. Spike Jonze directed the film Her. Sofia Coppola directed the film Lost in Translation. They were married from 1999 to 2003. December 2003, I might add. Lost in Translation came out in 2003. I believe it was like September, October of said year. So when Lost in Translation was filmed, obviously it was the type of situation where they weren't divorced yet. But I am sure, pretty confident, that there was some difficulty between them in the months coming up until their divorce was finalized. Now, here's the thing. Sofia Coppola has gone on the record saying that Lost in Translation is, in fact, actually about them and how she views herself as, Scarlett Johansson's character, which Scarlett Johansson plays Charlotte. And then we have, and I always butcher his name, Giovanni Ribisi. I apologize if I butchered his name, but he is supposed to be the Spike Jonze kind of figure. Now, that's something that Sofia Coppola has confirmed. Spike Jonze, on the other hand, he has kind of been playing it coy, I feel like, because his film, Her, takes place after, many, many years after the divorce. 10 years, to be exact. 10 years after the divorce, and we're finally getting, in my viewpoint, his perspective of their relationship. And I say this because he could have had any actress playing Samantha. But he chose Scarlett Johansson, who was in both Lost in Translation and, of course, Her. I personally think that that's the connection. I feel as though, in his mind, Theodore, played by Joaquin Phoenix, in Her is supposed to be him, whilst at the same time we have Scarlett Johansson playing Samantha. She is supposed to be the Sofia Coppola surrogate. I think it's very interesting if you look at it from those perspectives, especially because there are a lot of correlations between the two films. Windows, for instance. I think that there is a huge emphasis on windows and how a lot of times characters in both films will be looking out the windows, honestly, to kind of internalize, just really thinking about how lonely they are, looking outside and how everyone, is so busy and everything, but they themselves just feel so sad, so lonely. And I think that the other thing about these films is that they have such an emphasis on the differences between day life and night life. Hear me out on that. I mean, the sound design for both films have it where it's a lot louder during the day. You hear car engines, you hear people, running and walking to work and everything, and talking on the phone constantly, very busy life. Then you get to the nightlife in both films, and it's very calm, very soothing, and these characters are finding themselves, so to speak, and really kind of wallowing in their depression, but at the same time trying to find themselves, such as, let's face it, we all are. And I'm not going to lie, I saw Lost in Translation and Her around the same time. I saw Lost in Translation, for me, I believe, I did see after Her. Her I saw in January of 2014, and then Lost in Translation I heard about because of this whole thing that I'm talking about now, Sofia Coppola and Spike Jonze. I saw Lost in Translation, I think, in November of 2014, and both films I watched around 2 a.m. So it was really fitting, the fact that I was watching both films at such a late time in the night, where at that time I was living with my parents, and so the entire house was quiet. I was just honed in at what was going on with both films. The reason why I say this is because, again, there's just such an emphasis on that and in the films, and I think that it does such a great job. And I think that if you haven't seen either of these films, I would highly urge that you check these films out late at night. I'm not even kidding. I feel like it's a necessity because, don't get me wrong, watching it during the day, it's a really good experience for sure. But at the same time, when all these characters are at night and everything, late hours and everything, and just like, having some of these discussions and everything, I just feel like it's so fitting to really kind of, in order to be put in their perspective and everything, to really watch it late at night. Again, those are just my thoughts. But going back to the relationship between Spike Jonze and, Sofia Coppola, I just find these films fascinating because you get a sense from both of these films, like a sense of respect that they have for each other, whilst at the same time, two completely different ways on how they actually express themselves. Like, I feel like watching Lost in Translation, you really understand Charlotte's character more so. And by the way, I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I didn't even explain the premise of Lost in Translation. But Lost in Translation, the premise is this. So it is about a faded movie star and a neglected young woman. The two of them meet in Tokyo and they bond after such. Now, these two individuals, Charlotte, we as audience members are immediately intrigued by her because she is just someone that she doesn't say that much at first, but you notice that she just seems to kind of be brushed aside. And I know some people might be like, well, Chad, you said that it was, a mutual kind of like respect from both directors. Hear me out. I'm saying that you get her perspective, whilst at the same time, you don't look at Giovanni Ribisi's character, in my eyes at least, and say that he's a complete jerk-off. You say that he's just someone that is kind of in his own world, and that's fair. Then you watch the movie Her, which the premise is this. It's about, in the near future, a lonely writer develops an unlikely relationship with an operating system. Now, here's the thing. Theodore, who again, in my eyes, is supposed to be a surrogate of Spike Jonze, he is really into video games and is kind of neglectful. He is kind of like in his own world. Like, again, he even says it himself that he can't even prioritize, internet porn with video games. So it's he himself, Spike Jonze, in my eyes, is saying that he understands that. He understands that about himself, that he has, difficulty kind of being in his own world. And I just think that that's fascinating. Again, I think that there is a lot in the movie Her where he is saying, yeah, I kind of screw up in some areas. These are my flaws and everything. And I feel like Charlotte, the character in Lost in Translation, who's supposed to be Sofia Coppola, I feel like we can also see her in the eyes of Sofia Coppola and see that she too is saying, like, yeah, these are my flaws. I didn't really know myself at this time. I was still trying to find myself. And again, this is what makes both of these films very interesting and why I really do advise people to watch them both back to back. I think that both of them are just so emotionally in tune with each other. And I think that also getting an understanding of a relationship from two different perspectives is amazing. Because let's be honest, in everyday life, there are a lot of times where you'll hear a story and it's like, oh, I get that person's perspective. But then you hear the other side of that story from the person that they were talking about. And you're like, oh, I get that too. And that's good. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to have perspective. But I feel like it's also just really interesting to see a relationship kind of unfold the way that it did also in Translation. How it's like, okay, this was like the ending point of a relationship. And then you see the movie Her, which was 10 years later, that individual then saying like, yeah, hey, this is like me dealing with my grief. It's taken me a long time, but this is kind of like me unspooling all this. I just think that that's fascinating. Both of these films are very character driven. They have this like slice of life kind of quality to them. They're two different directing styles for sure. But again, they just have such an emphasis on dialogue. They have an emphasis on, in terms of the cinematography, the architecture, making it feel like a living, breathing character, especially, again, all the, the night scenery and everything. Both films are different in terms of the way that they have, not the sound design. The sound designs for both are very similar, as I mentioned earlier. But Lost in Translation has a soundtrack, which is, lyrical based, which, by the way, many of you know I'm not really a big fan of lyrical music. I prefer instrumental-based music, but holy cow, Lost in Translation, easily one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. This film, what a soundtrack. And then the film Her has a score, an excellent score, I might add, but there really isn't any like songs per se. It's mostly instrumental. But these two films are both very intricate in terms of their style, but together you can definitely see the line at which the directors were able to hone in on their experiences. And both of them won Best Original Screenplay for their films. So, how about that? But, so I'm going to say first, Lost in Translation It's a great film. I absolutely loved it, and that's why I'm personally going to be giving it a. And then the film Her, I also think it's great. Honestly, it's very difficult to choose between the two of them as to which I like more. I love them both. I think that they're both really good. But the film Her, I gotta say, I'm going to be giving it a. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on Lost in Translation and Her, as well as the perspectives of this relationship between Sofia Coppola and, of course, Spike Jonze. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on these two films, as well as just your thoughts in terms of what I perceive to be, again, two perspectives of a relationship that dissipated and how, over the span of 20 years, we got the side of Sofia Coppola, we got the side of Spike Jonze. But yeah, again, thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. As always, I really do appreciate you guys watching, and especially because I know that this is such a different video that I usually do. Again, I just figured I would combine the two because I wanted to review this because it turns 20. I also wanted to review Her because it turns 10. So I appreciate you guys watching. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me down on Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.